I have been diagnosed with a terminal illness for less than 3 minutes, and my 3 filthy rich sisters don't lift a finger to help. Instead, they vote to throw me out. But when they see me reunite with my biological sister, every single one of them regrets it. They beg me, in tears, to come back. But it is already too late standing there, hearing the doctor's verdict. With your condition, you likely won't make it past a year. My mind goes completely blank, filled with nothing but a dull roar. My legs feel like lead. As I walk out of the hospital, my pocket buzzes, and I reach for my phone on instinct. I see Vivienne's name on the screen. My heart gives a sudden, unexpected jolt. I never thought she would remember my checkup today. She has always snapped at me for no reason, but right now, even this small gesture feels like enough. Viv, the doctor said, but I don't even get to finish. Vivienne cuts me off, her impatience sharp and instant. It doesn't matter what the doctor said. I'm calling to tell you one thing. Your biological mother has been found, so don't ever call us your sisters again, and never set foot in Moore Estate again. You were never our real brother. Vivienne doesn't bother to hide a single word of it. Her voice is ice cold, laced with undisguised contempt, and in one blow she answers a question that has haunted me for years. Vivienne is Riverdale's wealthiest tycoon. Ruthless and untouchable Melody is an A-list star, the reigning queen of pop. I have spent years walking on eggshells, trying to earn their approval, and all along, I was just an adopted child. Now that their real brother has been found, they don't want to pretend for even one more second, so they make this call right away and kick me into the gutter without a second thought. Vivienne expects that once the truth is out, I will fall apart from the shock, maybe even scream and lose control. Then she can deliver the final blow in an even colder tone, forcing me to face reality and accept that we belong to completely different worlds. But I simply say, okay, calm and quiet, and accept it all. That catches Vivienne off guard, but only for a moment. After all, this saves her the trouble of a severance payment. Vivienne pulls her thoughts back together and turns her focus to welcoming their real brother. As for what I, the placeholder, am feeling, nobody cares. After that heartless call ends, Butler Hayes knocks and steps into the room. He hands Vivienne the outfits prepared for the upcoming banquet. Every piece is crafted by the finest tailors in the country. The matching jewelry alone runs into the tens of millions. Whatever guilt Vivienne has left vanishes on the spot, giving someone who could never have touched high society years of this kind of luxury. The Moore family owes Ethan nothing. Hayes, I want a bowl of noodles. Same as always. Butler Hayes hesitates for just a moment, then nods and heads off without a word. 15 minutes later, he sets the bowl in front of her. Vivienne takes one bite and frowns. Hayes, did you check the kitchen ingredients today? Butler Hayes catches the displeasure in her voice. He had assumed it was just a simple bowl of noodles that any cook could handle. But clearly, he was wrong. Vivienne is not satisfied at all. Butler Hayes thinks for a moment and says, the ingredients are fine. I checked them myself. Everything was in order. It might be because Ethan was the one who used to make this for you. The taste is just slightly different now. I'll have the chef adjust it right away. Vivienne stops him immediately. What do you mean by that? I've been having noodles every morning for over a year now. Don't tell me Ethan made all of them. Butler Hayes nods. Vivienne freezes. Then her voice takes on a faint note of reproach. No matter what you think of Ethan, he was still a member of this household. How could you let him do something like this? Butler Hayes quickly explains. You had that stretch where your stomach was giving you trouble, and you couldn't keep anything down. When Ethan found out, he spent several days experimenting in the kitchen on his own, until he got the noodles just right. Then he asked me to bring them to you. Vivienne waves her hand to stop him. This is genuinely the first she has heard of it. She feels a small flicker of something, but it fades almost instantly, replaced by a sense that it was only natural after all. Everything Moore Estate has given Ethan far outweighs a bowl of noodles. Meanwhile, I make my way to my biological mother's home. All along the road leading there, I see utility poles and trees near her door plastered everywhere with missing person flyers bearing my face. This is the room. Helen's voice trembles slightly as she speaks. The room is small but spotlessly clean. A white tablecloth with printed orchids is spread neatly across the table. It is the brightest room in the whole house, kept empty and waiting, just for me. My eyes sting with tears. She never gave up looking for me. She always kept a place for me here. And for the first time in years, I feel like I finally have a home at noon. I sit down with Sunny, who is still in elementary school, and Helen, sharing a home-cooked meal I have missed for so long. Helen just looks at me. For a long, long time, she still remembers those first few days after I disappeared, when day and night lost all meaning to her. She barely stopped for a single breath, putting up tens of thousands of missing person flyers in every corner of this city. But the phone never rang sometimes. Walking past storefronts on the street, she would catch a reflection in the glass and think she saw my face. I'm so glad. I finally have you back. At that moment, Sunny sees the rare smile on her mother's face and goes still for just a second. Then she breaks into a bright smile too. After lunch, Sunny clears the dishes without being asked and rolls up her sleeves at the sink like a little pro. I jump up to help her. Thank you. She had been too shy to say it during the meal, but now, Sunny finally lets it out. Thank you, big brother. Those two words wash over me like warmth back at Moore Estate. Even when I sat on the same sofa as them, we might as well have been in two completely different worlds in this moment. I make a quiet vow to myself, in whatever time I have left, I will not let Helen or Sunny suffer one more day. That night before bed, I get a voice message from Helen. Are you getting used to the food here? I'll pick up some pork ribs tomorrow and make a proper meal. I smile and send a voice message back. Sounds great, Mom. That single word, Mom, makes Helen go still. And then the tears come. She had been afraid. deep down that I would look down on such a poor home, but that fear is completely gone now. There are so many good days ahead of us. The next morning, Vivienne is up at her usual hour. The moment she stirs, the entire estate staff springs into motion. Everyone knows exactly where they need to be, and when so within 5 minutes, her makeup artist is already at the door throughout the session. She thinks about Xavier, her real brother, who is coming home soon. She needs to clear out Ethan's things before Xavier arrives, every last item, so Xavier won't have to look at any of it. But then a question surfaces: where exactly was Ethan's room? 10 minutes later, Vivienne follows Butler Hayes outside the main building. The lake reflects the scenery around it like a mirror. Soft green lawns stretch far into the distance. Tall poplar trees line the path, and birdsong and blossoms fill the air. All of it maintained daily by 3 landscape artists, each earning a 7-figure annual salary. Vivienne thinks to herself that without her luck, 100 years of hard work wouldn't get anyone a place like this. But as they keep walking, Vivienne suddenly notices something is off. "Hayes, didn't I ask you to take me to Ethan's room?" Butler Hayes nods and raises his white-gloved right hand, pointing ahead. "This is where young Master Ethan used to live." Vivienne stares. "Isn't that the staff quarters?" Then it comes back to her. She was the one who arranged it. Years ago, she had decided that since Ethan wasn't a real Moore, letting him grow up surrounded by this kind of luxury would likely turn him into a spoiled wreck. The Moore family had more than enough money and didn't worry about spending it. But in the eyes of the outside world, Ethan still carried the Moore name, and she refused to let his behavior embarrass the family. So she made the call, raise him lean, but all these years had passed, and Ethan had never once asked to move. Vivienne finds it hard to believe she had never truly treated him as a brother. Otherwise, she would never have forgotten where he slept, but still he was her brother in name. If he had ever spoken up, how could she have refused? Butler Hayes hears this, and seems to hold something back over the years. Even he, an outsider, could see it clearly. Vivienne's contempt for Ethan ran bone deep so many times. Ethan had come to her full of excitement, wanting to share something from school, a funny story, a good grade. Before he could even speak, she would cut him off without a second thought. Even when Butler Hayes tried to update Vivienne about Ethan, he would get caught in the crossfire, ordered to be quiet, as she snapped that she didn't want to hear a single word about Ethan ever again. Butler Hayes understood growing up in that kind of environment, and being the kind of quietly mature child he was, Ethan chose to swallow every grievance in silence, rather than risk upsetting Vivienne. Something in Butler Hayes' expression makes Vivienne pause, but someone like her would never admit to anything. None of that matters now. He's gone. And the staff quarters may not be the main building, but they're still far better than what any average middle-class family has. She tells herself this with complete conviction. Then Vivienne follows Butler Hayes into the building, and they make their way to the room where I used to live. As she descends the stairs, she stops cold. She could never have imagined that the boy who bore the Moore name was living in a basement. She is about to turn on Butler Hayes when the memory comes rushing back. Hayes had originally set up a guest room in the main building for Ethan. It was Vivienne who refused and ordered him to move to the North Wing instead. But the North Wing was entirely staff quarters with no spare rooms available, so Ethan had simply been put here. The room is not small. The furniture is adequate, but the moment Vivienne steps inside, she is hit by a chill, a damp cold that seeps right through her. For the first time, she feels a thread of genuine guilt. The boy she had lived alongside for years, her brother in name, had been living worse than a regular member of staff. As she absently sorts through the things in the room, Vivienne finds a collection of items in the drawer: a broken remote control car, worn-out building blocks, and a watch with hands that stopped long ago. At first, she sneers, an outsider to the end, couldn't even throw out this worthless junk. But when she looks at the watch again, she goes still. If her memory is right, this is the watch she casually tossed to Ethan years ago. She never imagined that after all this time, even after its hands stopped moving, he had kept it like something precious. It dawns on her that the other items in that drawer were probably things her sisters had casually handed him over the years. She never expected that things given away so thoughtlessly could have meant so much to him. Vivienne had planned to throw it all out, but something, maybe a flicker of guilt, stops her. She decides to return the items to Ethan. Instead, call it a final goodbye part on civil terms. After packing the old items into a storage box, she finds a stack of papers tucked at the back of the drawer. She pulls them out. They are financial aid applications. Her brow furrows. She is genuinely confused. Hayes, didn't I have you send him a monthly allowance? Why was he so broke that he had to apply for financial aid? She doesn't mean anything deep by it. She just finds it embarrassing that someone living under the Moore roof was going to school to beg for pocket money. It would look like the Moore family was mistreating him. But as soon as the words leave her mouth, she thinks of her own decision to raise him. The allowance she gave him was nowhere near what a wealthy household would provide. It was barely what an ordinary family would give, $2,000 a month. But even so, even on just $2,000, he shouldn't have been broke enough to need financial aid. Butler Hayes lowers his head and explains, the $2,000 was delivered every month, on time. Every single month. But once, Ethan quietly borrowed a sum from me. He said it was urgent, that he needed it for your birthday gift. I felt for him, so I told him not to worry about paying it back. But he paid me back every cent. He scraped it together and returned it not long after. That may be why. The words hit Vivienne like a sudden wave. All these years, every single birthday, Ethan had put thought into a gift for her. But because those gifts looked like they came off a street market stall, she would toss them in the trash the very next day, and yet, looking down from her height, she had forgotten that Ethan was never a true Moor. Those cheap, worthless-looking things to him were the very best he could give. As it happens, I run into Vivienne that morning. When she sees me, she stops for just a beat. Wait, don't go. I have something for you. I walk on, as if I heard nothing, without slowing down for even a step. Vivienne is visibly thrown in her world. Ethan had always done whatever she said without question, without hesitation. Why is he suddenly so cold? Vivienne frowns, but doesn't dwell on it. She takes the old storage box from her assistant. Ethan, these are your things from your old room. There's more in the car, the less important stuff. I'll have someone drop it all off at your place on the way. At that, I finally stop. I take the box from her, flip it open, and glance inside. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Before Vivienne can recover from those words, she witnesses something that leaves her speechless. I drop the entire box straight into the trash. By the time she pulls herself together, the boy who was once her brother is already gone nearby. Assistant Sean watches this unfold and speaks up, indignant. And you came all this way to return his things in person. Should have just thrown all that junk out yourself. The Moore family raised him for years, put him through one of the top universities in the country, and never once treated him unfairly. And he shows not a shred of gratitude. How dare he treat you like that? He's nothing but an ungrateful wretch. Vivienne is not listening to any of it. The moment she heard me call her Ms. Moore, something told her she had lost something she could never get back, but that vague, nameless feeling of loss is quickly swallowed by a surge of rage. She can no longer hold down. The only reason she lowered herself to come here at all was because she believed, deep down, that I still thought of her as family, and that was why I had treasured things she tossed aside without a thought. But after what she has just witnessed, Vivienne tells herself she now sees exactly who I really am. It convinces her that the decision she and her sisters made to throw me out was absolutely the right call. What Vivienne conveniently forgets is how many times, in public, when I called her by name, she had pretended not to know me at all, how many times she had talked down to me, and ordered me to address her differently in certain settings, warning me that being called family in public was an embarrassment to her. Now that I have done exactly what she always wanted, she finds herself completely unhappy about it. Seeing the fury on Vivienne's face, Assistant Sean keeps fanning the flames. Since he has no shame left anyway, if that ungrateful wretch ever comes crawling back, we turn him away without a second glance. People would kill for a chance to climb this high, and he just throws it away. He's going to regret this for the rest of his life. Listening to all of this, Vivienne feels the edge of her anger begin to dull. You're right, he'll regret this. Absolutely. Then Vivienne turns to the bag her assistant is holding. She remembers it contains more of my old things, and plans to pull them out and throw every last one away. Before long, she pulls out a stack of old documents. Worried her own papers might be mixed in, she flips through them carelessly. Inside are financial aid applications from my university years, and report cards spanning my entire life. When Vivienne sees the report cards, her eyes narrow almost involuntarily. She never expected that Ethan's academic record was this strong, nearly always at the top of his class, and a score of 680 on his college entrance exam. Vivienne is genuinely taken aback. She had never paid the slightest attention to his grades. Until this moment, she had assumed his place at a top university was bought by the Moore family's annual donations. But looking at this, he earned every bit of it on his own. A quiet sense of waste crosses Vivienne's mind. A score like that puts him within reach of a provincial top ranker. Setting everything else aside, purely as a talent worth investing in, Ethan had real potential. But what's done is done. There's no point dwelling on it. With enough money, top students like him are easy to find. Vivienne keeps searching through the bag and pulls out several medical exam reports. She almost laughs, thinking Ethan must be terrified of dying to have gotten checked out this many times at his age. And just yesterday on that call, she heard him mention a doctor. Curious, she opens one of the reports to see what he was actually being examined for. It is a checkup record from when he was 16. When she reads what is written there, Vivienne goes completely still. The attending physician has written clearly, patient reports frequent heart palpitations and low-grade fever over the past 2 weeks, along with dry heaving. Initial assessment pointing to malnutrition-induced liver damage. Final diagnosis, hepatitis. Vivienne stares at the page, stunned. How is that possible? Every meal at Moore Estate is designed by a certified nutritionist. How could anyone living there be malnourished? Then it hits her. She had never once allowed Ethan to eat at the same table as them. There was a time, years ago, when all the sisters came home to the estate, and Ethan had gone out of his way to stock the kitchen with ingredients and spent hours cooking a full spread. That time, Vivienne had almost made an exception and let him sit with them, but 2 unexpected guests arrived at the last moment, and she had Ethan give up his seat and go eat with the staff instead. Thinking back on it, Now she begins to see it differently. Ethan had always been the kind of person who accepted everything quietly obedient to a fault. He hadn't shown a trace of resentment that day, just swallowed his hurt and walked away, and so Vivienne had never thought twice about it now. Something finally clicks. All those years living under the same roof had built something in her, some small measure of feeling for him, but the prejudice in her bones ran too deep. She had always, at her core, treated him as an outsider. But even if Ethan had been eating with the staff every day back in high school, crowded around the same table, how could that have led to malnourishment? Full of confusion, she calls Butler Hayes, not out of concern, not out of guilt. She simply wants to know whether the staff had done their jobs back then. The call connects quickly. She lays out her question in a flat, cold tone on the other end. Butler Hayes is quiet for a moment, then answers carefully. It may be that during that period Ethan often missed meals. You had given strict instructions not to coddle him, said it would give him bad habits and embarrass the more name, so his schedule was kept in line with the rest of the staff. But staff meals run on a fixed window, miss it, and the kitchen closes. So he simply went without. He went hungry. Vivienne listens, growing more bewildered by the second. What does one thing have to do with the other? Was Ethan throwing a tantrum, refusing to show up on purpose, and ending up with nothing to eat as a result? Vivienne lets out a cold scoff. If he was doing that to himself, then he had it coming. Acting like a young master without the birthright to back it up. Butler Hayes listens, then says, with a tired smile, "Do you remember the time I asked you to arrange a driver for Ethan?" Vivienne pauses, thinking, and a vague memory surfaces. It was Ethan who had brought it up himself. Vivienne had heard it as an unreasonable demand and refused without a second thought. She had already decided to raise him. Lean, a personal driver, was out of the question. She had even suspected he was getting above himself, wanting to show off by riding around in an estate car. Yes, I remember something like that. But what does that have to do with food? Was he sulking over it, refusing to eat as some kind of protest? Butler Hayes shakes his head quickly. Ethan didn't complain. Not once. The very next day he used his allowance to buy a bicycle and rode that beat-up bike to school and back every single day. Vivienne hears this and nods. Inwardly, young people should get more exercise. But what Butler Hayes says next shatters every comfortable assumption she has been holding onto Butler. Hayes sighs and continues. The high school was very far from the estate. Even by bicycle it took over an hour. To get there on time every morning, Ethan had to be up by 5:30 in the morning, but the staff breakfast window at the estate, without exception, ran from 7 to 9, which means every morning when he left the house, the kitchen hadn't even been lit yet, and in the evenings, he was often too buried in schoolwork to make it back in time. Butler Hayes lets out a long, heavy sigh. Back then, he had watched all of this and felt helpless. He had brought up Ethan's eating situation more than once, but Vivienne had cut him off every time, insisting everyone be treated the same. No exceptions, no special treatment. The words land like a bolt through Vivienne. She finally sees just how badly she had gotten it wrong. She has always moved through the world and chauffeured cars. She had long forgotten what it costs to live without, that she had always assumed that a kid from an ordinary background had no business asking for a private driver, and naturally took Ethan's request as entitlement. She had completely overlooked how remote the estate was, and how far it sat from his school. His request had been completely reasonable, and even if the driver was off the table, even the smallest adjustment, having a cook start breakfast a little earlier, the way any normal family would for a child matching his schedule, would have been enough. But she had shut down both options herself. Vivienne has no choice but to admit it. Now Ethan starved his way into illness because of her after she hangs up. Assistant Sean, who had been so vocal just moments ago, now stands there feeling the sting of it too. But Ethan is still an adopted child, not Vivienne's real brother. Vivienne knows she was wrong, but a lifetime of looking down at the world makes it impossible to bow her head to anyone. She will just send someone to drop off his things. Meanwhile, back at Moore Estate, a young woman sits alone at the edge of her bed. Her skin is flawless, delicate as fine porcelain, the kind of beauty that draws every eye in every room. Her name is Melody Moore, the reigning queen of pop. Her latest release, just out recently, shot straight to the top of every major streaming platform. But last night, Melody could not sleep. She is terrified of sliding back into that darkness of becoming someone who lies awake, hollowed out, night after night. So she tries desperately to remember how she had gotten through it the last time. Out of habit, she reaches for her phone, ready to call Ethan over to help her unwind. Her fingers pause, and the realization hits her. Ethan is no longer here. She and her sisters drove him out themselves, but the pang passes quickly. He was never truly one of them. Xavier is coming home soon. Keeping a stand-in around would have been absurd. She has Butler Hayes find a massage therapist right away. Someone is sent, but no matter what, she cannot find that same calm she used to feel when I drag myself home. Exhausted, the living room is completely dark. There are steaming dishes on the table, but not a single person in sight. Then the bright hiss of sparklers fills the room. Light bursts through the dark. "Happy birthday, big brother." Helen steps out from the back room, smiling, and carefully sets a birthday cake on the table. Sunny dashes to the side of the room, yanks away a cloth, and reveals a small electronic keyboard underneath. She wants to play me a song she just learned. I am delighted, but also puzzled. When I arrived yesterday, there was definitely no keyboard in this room. This is not something a family like ours could easily afford, but I spot the clue quickly. A sticker on the keyboard reads, Class 2, Xiao Mei Wang. A sting rushes up to my nose. For my birthday, Sunny had gone out and borrowed someone's keyboard. In all those long years at Moore Estate, nobody had ever once cared about my birthday. Watching Sunny play with that look of total focus on her face, I stand beside her, eyes burning, and clap, humming softly along with the melody. When the song ends, I ruffle her hair and ask, "Do you really love playing? Once I save up enough, I'll get you one of your own." Sunny's face lights up instantly. She cannot hide it. "Thank you," is right there on the tip of her tongue, but she swallows it back down, trying to be mature. She blinks up at me with those big bright eyes and says the opposite of what she means. Actually, I don't even like it that much anymore. I see right through her, but I just smile and let her have it, already making a quiet promise to myself to give her something she won't see coming. So I go along with it and shift gears. "Thank you, Sunny. I really love it. Let me play one for you." Sunny's eyes go wide. "Wait, you play?" I have barely settled onto the bench and raise my hands when there is a soft knock at the door. I pull the door open and freeze. A girl stands there in a white button-up and a knee-length skirt, her dark ponytail framing a long, graceful neck, a light breeze lifting the loose strands around her face when she sees me open the door. Claire Yates breaks into a warm smile. "Looks like I've got the right place." She holds out an elegantly wrapped gift box with both hands. "Happy birthday, Ethan." When I just stand there, blank, she tilts her head and asks playfully, "Aren't you going to invite your best friend in?" She was my classmate back in high school. She had found out what happened through the class group chat and made a point of coming today. Sunny stares at this absolute goddess of a girl, then looks back at me, standing there like a statue. A knowing look spreads across her little face, and she grins like the sneakiest kid alive. She sidles up beside me, tugs at my sleeve, and whispers under her breath, "Is that pretty lady your girlfriend?" The apartment is barely big enough to keep a secret. There is no way Claire didn't hear that. A flash of embarrassment crosses her eyes, and she spins around to stare out the window, pretending to admire the view, doing her best to look completely unbothered. But her ears have gone completely red. Then I open my mouth, and the words land like cold water. No. The truth is, I am not unmoved. A girl like her, adored by everyone around her, beautiful in every way, inside and out. But I am a dying man. What right do I have to talk about love? Sunny has no idea what is going on between the adults, and just drags me straight over to the keyboard. I let her, and settle onto the bench. My fingers move across the keys, and the melody pours out like water. Claire is caught by it instantly. The sting from a moment ago completely forgotten. When the last note fades, the sound lingers in the air. Sunny claps until her little palms turn red. "That was amazing. That's Melody's new song, isn't it? All the girls in my class have been singing it non-stop." I just smile and say nothing, letting it go because only I know the truth. This song belongs to a past life, the final piece from a world that no longer exists. At the same time, across the city at Moore Estate, Melody sits at her grand piano. Deep into the night, soft light falls over her, and as the melody rises, she looks every bit the queen she has become. As she sinks deeper into the music, the sound grows richer and more alive. When the piece comes to a close, Butler Hayes breaks into quiet applause. Every time she finishes a performance like this, he cannot help but think of the past. When Melody was just 7 years old, she had seen a master pianist on a screen, fingers blazing across the keys, drawing out music that felt like raw power, and fell completely in love with the instrument. Today, her fans call her a master, but when she first started, her teacher saw no talent in her at all. Her feel for music theory was weak, far less developed than children her age, and her fingers were too short to become a true master of the piano. Long, elegant hands were considered essential. Her teacher had said so in the very first lesson back then. She sat at the bottom of her class until Ethan came along and changed everything. Even now, she cannot forget the boy she had watched play for the first time. Same limitations as her, his fingers no longer than hers, and yet he played perfectly from that day forward. Melody quietly made Ethan her competition. If a kid like him could do it, then she could do it better. She picked herself back up and threw herself into practice slowly. She pulled ahead of her peers and earned the recognition of that same teacher who had written her off. She was even invited to perform at a renowned opera house, playing a four-hands piano duet alongside her teacher. She still remembers how lucky she felt her teacher was one of the finest artists in the country, a legend who had swept every major competition at the national level. Melody was not the teacher's star student. Several older students outranked her with technique that surpassed hers by a full measure. She had wanted that spot desperately, but knew there was only one place, and the odds were not in her favor. And yet, at the very last moment, her teacher announced the spot would be decided by a draw chosen at random from among the students. As if fortune itself had reached down, Melody's name was the one pulled. She still remembers every detail standing in that great concert hall. Her notoriously short-tempered teacher was patient from the first note to the last. During the four-hands duet, the teacher followed her lead at every turn, staying in the background, making her the center of it all, giving her every spotlight moment on that stage. Even though it was her very first performance before an audience with hundreds of eyes on her, she found her footing quickly. Something in her shifted, and she stood taller. The gaze of the crowd no longer frightened her. When the final note rang out, her teacher stepped back and gave her center stage. She bowed with quiet grace, neither timid nor proud. The press captured the moment, and the reviews that followed were glowing. Every outlet said the stage looked like it had been built for her. After that night, Melody never doubted herself again. "Ethan, what do you think?" The name leaves her mouth before she even realizes it. Then it hits her. After all these years together, she has grown so used to. It used to Ethan being there whenever she practiced alone, always nearby, always present, and whenever she grew tired of playing, she would watch him take over and play, and somehow, that always settled something inside her. The thought leaves a quiet ache. She regrets the vote, the yes she had cast when they decided to send Ethan away. But then again, all of it was for Xavier, and Ethan was never truly Amor. Sending him away seemed reasonable enough, but then a solution comes to her. She has heard that Ethan's living situation is not good, that things are quite lean. She could pay him to come back as a practice partner. The idea pleases her more than she lets on, but she will wait a few days before reaching out. They only just threw him out. Calling him back right away would be awkward even for someone like her. As she rises to head back to her room, she notices the camera set up nearby. She had requested it herself, partly to keep a daily record, and partly to review her technique afterward, and find where she could improve. She had also, on more than one occasion, used the footage to quietly study Ethan's playing, so the thought comes to her immediately. There may be a recent recording of Ethan in there. It has been too long since she watched him play. She has Butler Hayes draw back the projection screen and plays the most recent footage of Ethan performing the moment that familiar melody fills the room. Melody goes completely rigid disbelief, written all over her face. She checks the timestamp on the recording, again and again. Then the realization strikes her like lightning. The piece Ethan is playing in this recording is the very song she released 2 weeks ago, but the date on this footage is a full week earlier than the day she first wrote it back at home. I have just finished playing, and Helen sets the final dish on the table, but as we sit down to eat together, Claire senses something is off. There is a distance between us that wasn't there before. She keeps telling herself that I have been through too much lately, and I'm still adjusting. Maybe in a day or two, things will go back to how they used to be. The moment dinner ends, I don't waste a second, and use the dishes as an excuse to disappear into the kitchen. Claire feels a tightness in her chest. I'll head out now, she tells Helen. The more she thinks about it, the worse it stings. She had put real thought into that gift, and Ethan had treated her with nothing but cold distance, without even a single thank you. But as she reaches for the front door, she still holds on to the hope that I will call after her if I just say something, anything. She would let the whole evening go. After everything they have been through together, she is certain I will. But reality slaps her hard. She pulls the door shut, hollow with disappointment, and I am still in the kitchen, without having moved an inch. Total jerk, Claire mutters, her voice cracking with something close to tears. She makes herself a silent vow. No more grabbing breakfast for Ethan on the way, at least not for a week. Absolutely not. I think that lady left angry, Sunny says quietly. I know. What I did was too much. Just then the doorbell rings. I dry my hands and hurry to the door, telling myself I will at least apologize. But it is not Claire standing there. Why are you just standing there blocking the door? Let us in. We need to talk. Vivienne speaks next, her voice flat and cold. Why have you blocked me and Celeste? She has been trying to reach you. It's urgent. Hearing her call herself that I almost want to laugh. Sorry, I'm not sure who you are. Could you remind me? Something cold flashes in Vivienne's eyes, still sulking about being asked to leave. There's really no need for this. You were never Amor to begin with. Everything is out in the open now. You know the truth. Are you really going to keep pretending otherwise, acting like none of this happened? Clinging to something that was never yours? Vivienne takes on that same lecturing tone she always uses once. This would have hurt me, but now I feel nothing. I am about to close the door in their faces when Helen hears the noise and comes to invite them in. She has no idea what lies between us. Vivienne clicks into the living room in her heels and looks around with open disdain to someone who has lived the way she has. Calling this a living room is generous. It is smaller than the storage room at Moore Estate. I'll get straight to it. All your personal belongings from your room are here. Celeste has some questions about the piano and would like your guidance. Come to the estate every weekend to practice with her, 2 days a week. In return, I'll cover your full tuition for the rest of university. On top of that, I'll pay you a monthly salary. Name your number. 30,000? 50? Either works. This generosity has nothing to do with any lingering bond between them. Vivienne sees the tuition as an investment, pure and simple. As for the salary, consider it a consolation for the years of malnourishment after listening to all of that arrogance. A brief hesitation crosses my face, not because of the tuition or the money, but because a face suddenly appears in my mind. Melody. She was always so fiercely driven, so unwilling to lose. Behind the brilliance she shows the world, the grace she carries in front of every camera. I know her better than anyone at her core. She is deeply, quietly insecure. Since I left, she won't be able to write like that anymore. She will likely fall back into the same darkness she crawled out of, the creative block, the dry well, the self-doubt eating away at every note she tries to play until she gives up, just like she almost did as a child. But I crush that flicker of pity before it can take hold. The decision to throw me out like trash was a vote every one of those sisters cast. They never once treated me as family. Why would I debase myself worrying about them now, when I don't cave the way I always used to? A cold smile surfaces inside Vivienne. She is convinced she has figured me out, certain that my resistance is just a play for more money. But right as she is congratulating herself, I open my mouth, and every word lands like a blade. Go back to that rotten place and play piano? I'd rather not. I don't want to get my hands dirty. I will never set foot in that place again. And we have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So please, stop lingering in my home. The words have barely left my mouth when the entire room goes dead. Silent assistant Sean stares at me like I have lost my mind. Have you completely lost it? If you throw away what Ms. Moore is offering you, you will regret it for the rest of your life. In Sean's mind, all I have to do is show a little sense, swallow my pride, and apologize, and even in a lesser role, at Moore Estate, I could still ride that wave all the way to the top. Helen and Sunny would never have to struggle again. Vivienne forces down her rage and jabs a finger toward me. Ethan, I'm giving you one last chance out of the goodness of my heart. Get down and apologize. Right now. Then show up every weekend to practice with Melody. The offer still stands. My answer is one word, clean and final. Get out. Vivienne slams the door so hard the walls shake in the car. She vows to cut all ties completely and pour everything into Xavier's welcome home banquet. Just then a spending notification lights up her phone. 530,000, all charged by Xavier. No description, no explanation. To Vivienne, it is a drop in the ocean. Xavier spent 20 years out there with nothing. Consider it the smallest start of what she owes him as a sister. Meanwhile, Melody receives news that stops her cold. It comes up during a casual call with her mentor. Ethan's piano talent far surpasses hers. The spot at the Opera House was never decided by a draw. Ethan had chosen to step aside and hand the place to her in an instant. She remembers a question Ethan once asked her, "We'll always be a family, right?" The next evening falls and I walk onto the university campus. All of yesterday, one question had been turning over in my mind. Whatever time I have left, what would make it mean something? But in this world, everything comes down to money. I need to build real wealth, and I need to do it fast. Given a second chance at life, I can see opportunities everywhere, snatching up prime real estate in the city center at rock-bottom prices, or going all in on undervalued stocks with massive upside. But the payoff horizon on all of it is too far out, so I lock onto a faster path and sign up for tonight's freshman welcome gala. On the way, I run into Claire, and we walk to the broadcast hall together. Inside, the hall is blazing with light, every spotlight trained on the main stage. As one of the country's most prestigious universities, this gala is on another level. Entirely, the school has brought in major media outlets to cover it live, and an official live stream is already running on the top platforms. The show has not even started yet, and the viewer count is already past 1,000. The moment we arrive, a sharp-eyed advisor spots us immediately and hauls us both straight into the backstage waiting room. Claire looks at me, completely baffled. I have always kept the lowest profile imaginable, so signing up to perform on stage is the last thing she expected from me. During the wait, the advisor leans in. Tonight matters a lot. The school has you opening the show. Ethan, are you absolutely sure you can deliver? I hear that and give a calm, steady nod. Leave it to me. I think I can hold my own at the piano. Before long, the gala begins. The host sees me take my seat at the piano and cannot hide the shock on his face. Word spreads quickly that I'm performing an original piece. The crowd starts murmuring, "Who even is this guy? An original composition? Just like that? Does he actually have the chops to pull this off? You really don't know? Where have you been?" That's Ethan Moore, the brother of Riverdale's wealthiest tycoon, though from what I heard, the real son came back a few days ago. The Moore family already put out a statement cutting all ties. Then comes a clean, sharp click, and every light on stage goes out at once. The hall drops into a silence so complete you could hear a pin drop. A single blinding spotlight ignites from above and locks onto me. I follow the light to the piano at the center of the stage and settle onto the bench with calm, unhurried grace. I lift the lid, adjust the microphone, and in the held breath of thousands, the music pours out like a mountain stream, finding open water, a melody no one in that room has ever heard before. Students and faculty look at each other in stunned silence. They had come ready to be entertained by a failure, expecting something rough, half-finished, embarrassing. Nobody expected this to be real. Soft notes drift upward and slowly fill the entire hall as the music builds. Layer by layer, the audience sees sunlight pouring through stained glass, falling softly over a bride in white. Two figures gaze at each other, eyes full of something that needs no words. And just as they are about to speak their vows, the music shifts, suddenly shadowed with grief. That beautiful vision of love and ceremony shatters like a reflection in broken water. As if all that beauty had only ever been a dream, a popular online creator in the audience shouts out, "What is this piece called? Someone tell me right now." A dream wedding comes to its end. I bow and walk off the stage. The gala continues on schedule, but in the unseen world of the internet, that solo has already ignited a storm. The high-definition footage of my performance spreads across every platform. A dream wedding shoots straight to the top of trending. Oh my, he is unreal. Those fingers aren't hitting piano keys. Every single note lands right in my heart. Why can't I find this anywhere? Don't tell me this is a one-time exclusive. An original, and it drops like this? As the discussion explodes across the internet, the country's biggest streaming platform can no longer sit still. They dispatched director Nash to our campus that same night with orders to secure exclusive rights at any cost. Meanwhile, Xavier's welcome home banquet is in full swing. Vivienne stands with her glass, scanning the room. Puzzled, Melody is nowhere to be found. She was supposed to perform tonight. To thank the guests back at the venue, director Nash corners me backstage. "Mr. Moore, what a pleasure. We are very eager to acquire the exclusive streaming rights to your piece. Would you be open to a partnership?" He launches into a stream of tempting revenue-sharing proposals, but nothing could have prepared him for how quickly I agree. I want to sell the full copyright outright for him. This is the deal of a lifetime. Just as we are about to settle on a final number, the door to the waiting room is shoved open. "Ethan, don't sell. Think bigger. Don't let them lowball you. It is Melody, who had watched the livestream and come straight here, not stopping for a single second. I know you need money right now after everything, but selling the full copyright would be penny wise and pound foolish. Hold on to it, and it will only grow in value. I don't even glance in her direction. I don't answer right away. I just send one cold question back her way. When they voted to throw me out of Moore Estate, you voted yes. Am I wrong? Melody visibly flinches, her eyes go red at the edges, and she nods, slowly, with guilt written all over her face. I watch the performance and feel absolutely nothing. That cold, loveless place, I left it behind. Long before they pushed me out, Melody has a whole flood of words she wants to pour out. Ethan, do you have any idea how much I've been suffering? Without you there to practice with me, I can't sleep. Can we play together again? Like we used to? I miss sitting side by side at the piano. We were so close back then. She barely gets through it before I cut her off. None of that has anything to do with me. Go back to your mansion and play there. Stop coming here and playing the fool in front of me. Melody stands there, struck speechless. She has never, in her most far-fetched dreams, imagined I would ever look at her with this kind of contempt. All it used to take was a casual word from her, and I would show up for her without fail for over a decade. Through all those years, I never once arrived late. Even when I was sick with a fever, she knows better than anyone that being there for her had once been everything to me. So what is this look in my eyes now? The gap between then and now makes her eyes burn even more. Ethan, what happened to you? You never used to speak to me like this. I genuinely love hearing you play. Can't you find a little time for me? Those words turn my stomach. I let out a short, cold laugh. Is something wrong with me? Or has everyone here just lost their memory? Who was it that called me garbage? Said I was worthless? That having me around was nothing but an eyesore? And then joined hands to throw me out like trash? Kicked me into the gutter without a second thought. And now that things are going well for me, suddenly you remember what I meant to you? How shameless can you get? I fire the next shot without blinking. First of all, if something is wrong with your head, go see a doctor. Stop trying to get close to me. We are not close. I pull out my phone right in front of her and dial security. Security? This is the backstage waiting room. There is an unauthorized individual in here harassing me. Please send someone to escort her out. I hang up and look down at her. Second, what I do with my life is none of your business. My time is precious, and I refuse to waste what little I have left arguing with someone as fake as you, Melody Moore. In that moment, a wave of grief and humiliation crashes over Melody. She never expected things to spiral this far out of control in the past. She had thrown plenty of tantrums and caused plenty of trouble, even trampling over my dignity more than once without a second thought. And every time, all it took was a half-hearted apology from her for me to forgive her without hesitation. By the next day, we would be fine again. So she had always assumed that as long as she was willing to back down, this time would go exactly like all the others, that if she just lowered herself enough to admit fault, I would be grateful and go right back to being by her side. So no matter how hard she tries, she cannot make sense of it. She had swallowed her pride and come here in person, and I had shut the door in her face without flinching. She is still forcing down the shock and humiliation, and bracing herself to pull rank and guilt trip me again, when the security guard storms into the waiting room. Excuse me, miss, are you a student here? If not, I need you to leave immediately. A flicker of panic crosses Melody's face. For the first time, she steps forward, as if she is about to argue her way through it, but I've already put on my noise-canceling headphones, completely ignored. She feels a surge of wounded pride, and a sharp, needling ache spreads through her chest. She cannot understand how it has come to this, and even less how the boy who once looked at her like she was everything could have changed so completely for the first time. Someone who has always stood above everyone else feels afraid. She is terrified that the shadow that always followed her has finally, in this moment, broken free from her for good. As the security guard grows more firm, Melody has no choice but to bow her head in shame and be escorted out of the room like a stray dog, with nowhere to go. When she drifts back to Moore Estate, hollow and lost, Xavier's welcome home banquet is winding down. Xavier is on stage, performing under the spotlight with everything he has, when he suddenly spots his second sister standing in the crowd. Completely blank-faced, he assumes his singing has moved her. He has no idea that Melody is on the verge of tears, precisely because his singing is so painful to listen to. The contrast is sharp. Ethan had commanded the entire room with nothing but his piano, and yet her real brother on that stage sounds like a cat being stepped on. The difference is so painful it makes her want to cry. She makes it through the night in agony and wakes up well past mid-morning. The first thing she does is grab her phone and send a cautious message into the chat window, hoping to find out whether she has been unblocked. But the moment the screen lights up, a news notification pops up. The streaming platform has officially announced a deal with piano prodigy Ethan Moore, acquiring the full copyright of A Dream Wedding for $2 million. After reading the announcement, she cannot hold back. What an absolute fool. He has zero business sense. She had pleaded with him not to rush into selling. With her years of experience in the industry, she can say conservatively that within 10 years, the royalties alone would have been worth at least $5 million, not counting the staggering returns 20 or 30 years down the line. The news makes her chest ache, and her mind race. After witnessing that performance that had shaken the entire internet, she knows Ethan's technique has reached a level beyond compare, carrying the kind of depth that takes masters decades to earn. That realization pulls her into a doubt she cannot shake. Had Ethan been holding back all along every time he sat beside her as a practice partner? How else could he have burst into brilliance the moment he left? Had he been quietly making way for her pride this whole time? With $2 million in hand, I head straight to the hospital and come out with a bag full of imported medication, then squat by the side of the road and tear into a street crepe like I haven't eaten in days. Nash Carter happens to walk past and sees the whole thing. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed it. The piano prodigy who just pulled in $2 million from a single piece is crouching on a curb eating street food like a construction worker on lunch break. True to every clause in the buyout contract, I go into the studio and lay down the full recording of A Dream Wedding. Nash Carter brings over a premium cup of tea with both hands. Mr. Moore, the full payment has been transferred. Every last cent. The reason he is rolling out the red carpet for someone my age is simple. I have just turned 20, and at 20, I have already produced something that belongs in the canon. Who is to say this isn't just the beginning? What if there's a second piece? A third, just waiting to be pulled out? Better to pour resources in now and lock down goodwill so when the next masterpiece comes, they are first in line. Nash Carter stands up beaming and extends his hand. Mr. Moore, here's to a successful first collaboration. If you ever have another piece of this caliber, I hope today has shown you how serious we are. We would love nothing more than to work with you again. But all that warmth hits a wall. He has delivered a full speech of polished flattery, and I sit there like a post, giving him absolutely nothing. Not even the courtesy of standing up to shake his hand. The arrogance quietly infuriates him, but after years in this industry, he has met all kinds of eccentric geniuses who think the world owes them a bow are nothing new. Just as he is turning to leave, I finally lift my eyes and speak. Sorry about that. My mind wandered. Since you're so eager for a next time, why waste time waiting for it? No time like the present. Let's do it today. What I say next, delivered without a trace of drama, drops his jaw so hard he can barely close his mouth. I have another complete original. Right here. It holds its own against A Dream Wedding. Every measure of it. The words, land, and the studio goes completely silent. Not just Nash Carter. Even the sound engineer beside him stares with wide eyes in their minds. A Dream Wedding is the kind of piece that comes once in a generation, destined to be remembered long after its composer is gone. A true classic. To write something like that at 20 is already the mark of an extraordinary talent. And yet, right here in front of them, I am claiming to have another one, sitting in my pocket at the same level. How could that not send a chill down their spines? The look on Nash Carter's face right now is something to behold. This is the real thing. He has struck gold. If Ethan can actually produce a second piece that matches the first, then the sheer scale of this person's musical gift is something almost too frightening to comprehend. And yet, how has someone this extraordinary spent 20 years completely unknown in this industry?